Marcus Stone adjusted his worn-out hoodie as he stepped out of the yellow cab onto the bustling streets of Manhattan. The fabric felt foreign against his skin, a far cry from the tailored suits that usually graced his towering frame. At 62, he had built an empire that spanned from professional sports to banking, yet today he looked like any other middle-aged man, trying to make ends meet. The prestigious Stone Financial headquarters loomed above him, its gleaming glass exterior reflecting the morning sun. But Marcus wasn't headed there. Instead, he turned the corner and walked 3 blocks to one of his smaller branches in a middle-class neighborhood. The complaints had been piling up on his desk for months, reports of discriminatory treatment, dismissive attitudes, and a disturbing pattern of prejudice based on appearance. As he pushed open the heavy glass doors, the familiar scent of leather chairs and fresh coffee filled his nostrils. The security guard barely glanced his way, too engrossed in his phone. At the reception desk, a young woman with perfectly manicured nails continued typing, not bothering to look up. "Excuse me," Marcus said, clearing his throat. "I'd like to speak with someone about opening an investment account." The receptionist, her nameplate reading Jessica, finally lifted her gaze, eyes scanning his attire with poorly concealed disdain. "Do you have an appointment?" "Your website states none is needed for initial consultations," Marcus replied calmly, watching her reaction. "We're very busy today," she said, turning back to her screen. "Perhaps you should try our downtown branch. They might be better suited to your needs." Before Marcus could respond, the doors swung open again. A man in an expensive suit strode in, talking loudly on his phone about golf memberships and stock options. Jessica's demeanor transformed instantly. Her spine straightened, a bright smile illuminated her face, and she practically jumped to attention. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Stone Financial. How may we assist you today?" Marcus stepped back, observing the interaction with growing concern. The man in the suit was immediately ushered to a private office, while Marcus remained standing at the reception desk, apparently invisible once again. He approached another desk, where a middle-aged woman was arranging papers. "I'd like to discuss your premium investment packages," he said. The woman, Linda, according to her nameplate, barely suppressed an eye roll. "Sir, our premium packages require a minimum investment of $500,000. She emphasized the amount, clearly expecting it to end the conversation. "I'm aware," Marcus replied. "I'm prepared to invest substantially more than that." Linda exchanged a skeptical glance with Jessica. "Of course you are," she muttered under her breath, then louder. "You'll need to provide proof of funds before we can proceed." "Is that your standard procedure?" Marcus asked, gesturing toward the private office where the suit-wearing client was being served coffee and pastries. "I noticed my fellow customer wasn't asked for the same verification." Linda's face flushed. "Sir, if you're going to be difficult, I'll have to ask you to leave." Marcus stayed rooted to his spot. "I'd like to speak with the branch manager." "Mr. Peterson is unavailable," Linda snapped. "I can see him through his office window checking his phone," Marcus observed quietly. The tension in the lobby was palpable now. Other employees had stopped their work to watch the exchange. Linda's fingers drummed nervously on her desk as she realized this shabby-looking man wasn't going to be easily dismissed. "Mr. Peterson doesn't see clients without appointments," she insisted. "I think he'll want to see me," Marcus said, reaching slowly into his pocket. He retrieved not a wallet but a small golden card that every employee of Stone Financial knew by sight. The executive signature card, carried only by the highest-ranking officers of the company. The atmosphere in the branch shifted dramatically as Marcus held up the golden card. Linda's face drained of color, and Jessica's fingers froze mid-type. Through the glass walls of his office, Mr. Peterson finally looked up from his phone, sensing the sudden tension in his usually quiet branch. Marcus walked calmly toward the manager's office, every employee's eyes following his movement. He knocked once on the glass door, more out of courtesy than necessity. Peterson's casual "come in" died on his lips as Marcus entered and quietly closed the door behind him. "Mr. Peterson," Marcus said, settling into one of the leather chairs without invitation, "I've been hearing some concerning reports about this branch." Peterson's confusion quickly turned to horror as recognition dawned on his face. "Mr. Stone, We weren't expecting, we didn't know. Clearly, Marcus interrupted, his voice level but firm. Tell me, James, how long have you been managing this branch? 3 years, sir, Peterson stammered, hurriedly straightening his tie. And in those 3 years, did you ever read our company's mission statement? The one I personally wrote when I founded this institution? Peterson's silence was answer enough. Marcus continued, I built this bank on the principle that everyone deserves respect and equal opportunity. I didn't get where I am because people rolled out the red carpet for me. I got here because a few key people looked past appearances and gave me a fair chance. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see the entire staff trying to appear busy while stealing glances at the unfolding scene. Linda was repeatedly straightening the same stack of papers, her hands shaking slightly. Sir, I can explain, Peterson began, but Marcus held up a hand. I've seen enough explanations today. What I haven't seen is the level of service we promise. Our clients, all our clients. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out his phone. I'm calling in an immediate audit of this branch. Every interaction, every declined application, every transferred account for the past 6 months will be reviewed. Peterson slumped in his chair, the implications clear. Outside, the news seemed to spread through the office like a wave. Employees whispering urgently to one another. This isn't about punishment, James, Marcus said, his tone softening slightly. This is about living up to who we say we are. I'm bringing in a new training team. Everyone here will go through our customer service program again, including you, especially you. He stood up, adjusting his hoodie. I came in here looking like this because I wanted to see how you treat people who don't fit your preconceptions of wealth. What I saw disappoints me deeply, but it's not irreparable, not if you're willing to change. Peterson nodded numbly, words failing him. I'll be sending in a temporary management team this afternoon, Marcus continued. They'll oversee the audit and begin implementing changes immediately. I expect your full cooperation. As he turned to leave, Marcus paused at the door. Oh, and James. That young man in the suit you're serving coffee to, he's one of our junior analysts from headquarters. He was part of today's observation. The color drained further from Peterson's face as Marcus opened the door. The office beyond had fallen, completely silent. Every employee stood frozen at their desk, watching as their CEO, still in his worn hoodie and old sneakers, walked toward the exit. At the door, he turned to address the entire branch. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp, everyone will be here for the start of your retraining. This isn't optional and it isn't punishment. It's an opportunity to be better, to do better, because that's what Stone Financial stands for. As Marcus stepped out into the sunlight, he pulled out his phone again. There were 19 other branches in the city that had received similar complaints. It was going to be a busy month. The next morning arrived with a palpable tension in the air. The Stone Financial branch that had been caught discriminating against its CEO opened its doors an hour earlier than usual. The employees filed in quietly, their usual confident struts replaced by cautious steps. The temporary management team, led by Sarah Chen, a veteran trainer known for her no-nonsense approach, was already setting up in the main conference room. Linda arrived first among the regular staff, her usual perfectly pressed suit showing slight wrinkles, evidence of a sleepless night. Jessica slipped in moments later, her typically impeccable makeup slightly smudged. James Peterson, the branch manager, entered last, having spent the night in his office reviewing every policy manual he'd previously ignored. Good morning, Sarah announced, her voice carrying authority without aggression. Before we begin, I want to make something clear. You're not here to be punished. You're here because somewhere along the way this branch lost sight of what Stone Financial represents. She gestured to the walls, where new posters had been hung overnight. They showed diverse groups of people, young, old, formally dressed, casually dressed, all engaged in banking activities. These aren't just marketing materials. They're reminders of who we serve, everyone. The training began with an exercise that made several employees visibly uncomfortable. Each staff member was asked to share a time when they felt judged based on their appearance. Linda's voice cracked as she described being dismissed at a luxury car dealership. Jessica admitted to being ignored at high-end restaurants when dining. Alone? Yet, Sarah pointed out, you perpetuated the same behavior here. The morning progressed with role-playing exercises. Peterson found himself in shabby clothes, trying to open an account while another employee treated him with the same disdain he had tacitly encouraged. The experience left him sitting quietly at his desk during their first break, staring at a family photo and making a phone call to his teenage daughter. As part of the transformation, Sarah introduced a new initiative. Starting immediately, employee evaluations would include mystery shopper visits, people of all backgrounds testing the quality and consistency of service. But more importantly, she announced a mentorship program that would pair employees with clients from diverse backgrounds who had succeeded despite facing prejudice. Their first mentor walked in just before lunch. Diana Wong, a self-made tech entrepreneur who had once been turned away from 3 different banks before finding success. I was wearing thrift store clothes and carrying a revolutionary software idea, she told them. The banks saw the clothes. The venture capitalists who finally listened saw the idea. Today, my company's IPO made headlines. The afternoon brought Marcus Stone himself back to the branch, this time in one of his usual impeccable suits, the soir. Employees straightened in their chairs, but his presence carried a different energy than the day before. He wasn't there to criticize, but to share. I started my career being cut from my high school basketball team, he began, perching casually on the edge of a desk. The coach said I didn't have the right look for a champion. 2 years later, I led a different school to the state championships. That coach looked past appearances and saw potential. He walked around the room, making eye contact with each person. Banking isn't just about money, it's about possibility. Every person who walks through that door carries dreams, ambitions, and potential. Your job isn't to judge whether they deserve a chance. Your job is to help them make the most of the chances they create for themselves. The day ended with each employee being assigned a personal development plan. Peterson would spend time working at a community credit union. Linda would join a diversity and inclusion task force. Jessica would help develop a training program for new receptionists, emphasizing the importance of first impressions. 6 months after Marcus Stone's undercover visit, the transformed branch had become a case study in cultural change. The physical space remained the same, gleaming floors, leather chairs, and the subtle scent of success, but the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The change wasn't just in policies or procedures, it was in the very air people breathed when they walked through the doors. Linda, once known for her dismissive attitude, had become the branch's most celebrated success story. Her experience on the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force had awakened something in her. She'd started a weekly financial literacy workshop in the community center, teaching basics of banking to recent immigrants and young entrepreneurs. The same critical eye that had once judged appearances now scrutinized loan applications for hidden potential. One morning, she found herself facing a young woman in paint-stained overalls. Instead of raising an eyebrow at the casual attire, Linda listened intently to the woman's business plan for an eco-friendly painting company. By the end of the meeting, she wasn't just processing a loan application, she was helping to build a dream. Jessica's transformation had been equally profound. The reception desk, once a barrier, had become a welcome center. She'd replaced her judgmental glances with genuine smiles, and her desk now featured a sign in multiple languages. Every dream deserves a chance. The young analyst who had posed as a wealthy client during Marcus's visit now regularly brought junior employees to observe her customer service techniques. James Peterson's journey had perhaps been the most challenging. His time at the community credit union had forced him to confront his biases head-on. He'd worked alongside people he might have once dismissed, learning their stories, understanding their challenges, and recognizing their resilience. When he returned to his position, he came with a new perspective and a determination to make amends. The branch's success had caught the attention of the entire Stone financial network. What had started as a corrective measure had evolved into a model for institutional change. Bankers from other branches began requesting transfers to learn from their approach. The waiting area, once a place of quiet discrimination, now buzzed with diverse conversations in multiple languages. Sarah Chen's training program had expanded beyond its original scope. She found herself fielding calls from other financial institutions, all asking the same question: how had they achieved such a dramatic transformation? The answer became clear one rainy Tuesday morning. A man in muddy work boots walked in, looking uncertain. He was a construction worker with an idea for a sustainable building material. Within minutes, he was seated in a comfortable chair, being offered coffee by Jessica while Linda prepared for their meeting. Peterson, passing through the lobby, stopped to welcome him personally. What none of them knew was that Marcus Stone was watching the scene unfold through the bank's security cameras, a small smile playing on his lips. The report on his desk told the story in numbers. Customer satisfaction up 87%, new account openings increased by 65%, and loan approval rates now reflecting the true diversity of their community, all while maintaining the bank's high standards for financial responsibility. But it wasn't just the numbers that proved the success of the transformation. It was in the small moments, the thank you cards that began appearing on Linda's desk, the community events where Peterson now spent his weekends, the growing wall of success stories featuring clients from all walks of life. The branch had become more than a bank. It had become a catalyst for change in the lives of its clients and employees alike. Other branches began adopting their practices, creating a ripple effect throughout the entire organization. The story of the transformation even reached the business press, though few knew the full story of how it began with a CEO in a worn hoodie. 1 year to the day after Marcus Stone's undercover visit, the branch was preparing for a special celebration. The employees had gathered early, arranging chairs in the main lobby for what they thought was simply an anniversary event. None of them knew that Marcus had something bigger planned. The branch's transformation had exceeded even his highest expectations. What began as a corrective measure had evolved into a revolutionary approach to banking, one that proved inclusion and profitability could go hand in hand. The numbers told part of the story: record-breaking growth, unprecedented customer satisfaction scores, and a loan default rate that was actually lower than before. But the real story was in the lives that had been changed. Linda stood at her desk, straightening a display of success stories, photographs and testimonials from clients who had been given a chance. There was Maria Chen, whose food truck empire now employed 30 people. Abdul Rahman, whose innovative recycling business had just secured a city contract. Sarah Williams, the painter in overalls, whose eco-friendly painting company now had a waiting list 6 months long. Jessica, now the bank's head of customer experience training, was preparing to welcome a group of new employees from other branches. Her transformation had been so complete that she'd been promoted to lead customer service initiatives across the entire Stone financial network. The greeting desk, where she had once dismissed Marcus, now displayed a quote: "Every person carries a story worth hearing." James Peterson had found his true calling in community banking. His office walls, once bare except for banking certificates, now showcased photographs of local business owners he'd helped, community events he'd attended, and the thank you letters he treasured most. He'd become a regular speaker at industry conferences, sharing the story of how prejudice almost cost him everything, and how confronting it had given him more than he could have imagined. As the lobby filled with employees, clients, and community members, Marcus Stone quietly entered through the back door. He watched as Linda began the ceremony, introducing speakers who shared their experiences of transformation, both personal and professional. Person after person spoke about second chances, about looking beyond surfaces, about the power of being truly seen. Then Marcus stepped forward, surprising everyone. "A year ago," he began, "I walked into this branch wearing old clothes and carrying a dream. Like many others before me, I was judged by my appearance rather than my potential. But unlike many others, I had the power to change things. Today, we're not just celebrating a year of transformation, we're launching something new." He unveiled a large screen showing a map of the United States. "The Stone Financial Community Investment Initiative," he announced. "Starting today, we're taking what we learned here and expanding it nationwide. Every branch will undergo the same transformation. Every employee will receive the same training. And every person who walks through our doors will receive the same respect. The crowd erupted in applause, but Marcus wasn't finished. He turned to where Linda, Jessica, and Peterson sat. And to lead this initiative, I've chosen the 3 people who demonstrated that real change is possible, who proved that when we confront our biases and open our hearts, we all grow stronger. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Peterson sat straighter, his face showing pure determination. They had gone from nearly losing their jobs to being chosen to lead a national transformation. Banking isn't just about money, Marcus concluded. It's about belief. Belief in potential, in dreams, in the power of opportunity. 1 year ago, this branch lost sight of that truth. Today, they're teaching it to others. Tomorrow, they'll help us spread it across the nation. As the ceremony concluded and people mingled, sharing stories and dreams, Marcus stood back and watched. The branch that had once been a symbol of discrimination had become a beacon of hope. The transformation that began with a simple test had sparked a revolution in banking culture. And somewhere in the city, another person in worn clothes and carrying big dreams was walking toward a Stone Financial branch, about to discover that appearance didn't determine opportunity. Not anymore. Fim da Historia. Dear listeners, we hope Marcus Stone's journey of transformation has touched your hearts and perhaps changed your perspective on judgment and opportunity. This story reminds us that change begins with one person, one moment, one decision to see beyond the surface. To continue experiencing more inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel and click the like button below. We've created a special playlist of similar transformative tales that you can find by clicking the link to your left. Join our community of storytellers and dreamers. Share your own experiences of transformation in the comments below. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the complexity of human nature and the power of change. Don't miss our upcoming content as we continue to share stories that matter. Your voice, your story, could be the next one to inspire thousands. See you in the comments.